Chapter 2 Cold Hard Truth. Silence reigns as you sit with 8 of Nick's 9 other guests. Your hands shake, though not from the chill of your rain-soaked clothes. Maybe we were wrong. Maybe Nick just was hurt really bad. Maybe... He flinches. The doors of the sitting room open. Medhanani enters, her face grim and her hair and clothes wet through. I've examined Nick's body. So it's true, he's really gone? Yes. I'm a family doctor, not a mortician, but the serious fracture to his skull, it looks like he hit the ground head first. He would have died instantly, if it helps. I also found this in his pocket. She holds up a damp piece of paper, and you instinctively reach for it. Please don't be what I think you are. You unfold it and find a few short typed sentences. The ink has run, but you can make out the words enough to read them aloud. I know I look like I have everything, but it was never enough. I just wanted to see you all one last time, and I'm grateful you gave me that. I'm sorry. I hope one day you'll forgive me. Angelina has been standing statue-like, still beside the fire, but now she slumps, a sob escaping from her lips. Oh God, he really did this. Come here. Farah and Liz flank Angelina, wrapping their arms around her from either side. Their faces blur as your own eyes well up with tears. I don't believe this. Nick wouldn't kill himself. He had everything he ever wanted. Sometimes that doesn't matter. I was a therapist before my longevity career took off, and if I learned anything, it's that you never know what someone else is going through. Not unless they tell you. Then why didn't he tell any of us? Maybe he didn't want to upset anyone. Nick never did want to bring people down. Shame. He didn't realize what a huge downer his freaking death would be. Maybe none of us could have seen this coming, but one of us sure should have been there to stop him from acting on it. You were Nick's bodyguard, John. Your entire job is to keep him safe. Why weren't you there? As Angelina rounds on John, he steps back from the force of her anger. His steely facade falls away, revealing his shock and hurt. He told me to stay downstairs, that he'd call if he needed anything. Angelina, that's not fair. John's job was to protect Nick from other people, not from himself. If Nick told him to leave, there's nothing he could have done. He said no to Nick plenty of times before. So quickly, you almost miss it. John flicks you a grateful glance before putting up his walls again, his expression going carefully neutral. And I wish I'd done it again this time. But there's no taking it back now. Midhani, help me bring Nick's body inside. You can prep it for transport while I contact the authorities. Good plan. She pushes her wet hair away from her face as she follows John outside. Something in all of you shatters as the door closes behind them. I can't be here. This is all too much. Angelina hurries out the door to the foyer, but none of you try to stop her. Oh, this is actually happening, isn't it? At first I thought this was all part of the game. I need a drink. Crystal takes a full bottle of vodka from the cart, uncaps it, and takes a deep swig. Damn, Crystal. He pours himself a whiskey, raises it to her, then pours it solemnly on the floor. For you, Nick, I'm sorry you decided to tap out early. I think Nick would have preferred if you drank that in his memory, instead of making a mess for someone else to clean up. Don't tell me how to grieve, man. Are we sure he jumped? The room falls silent, all eyes turning to Farah as she suddenly speaks up, her voice is sharper than you've ever heard before. What do you mean? You think someone here is a murderer? I'm just saying none of us were up there with him. I don't know what to think. We all saw the note. I don't want to be true either, but that note was pretty damn clear. Was it? Can we please not go into the weird conspiracy theories? Nick's dead. That's enough to deal with right now. Liz is right. The authorities will be here soon, and then we can all get the hell out of this. Actually, I'm afraid we can't leave. Just then, John returns. You didn't think it was possible for his face to get more grim, and yet, the storm caused a landslide. It cut off the only pass into the estate. That means the authorities won't be able to get here tonight. You look out the window. The heavy rain falls at a violent angle outside, showing no sign of stopping. So we're trapped here, and we're supposed to what? Just wait? Until tomorrow, yes. The police should be here by then, and this will all be over. For now, we should at least try to get some rest. You climb into bed, waiting for sorrow or sleep to take you, but moments from the day keep replaying in your mind. Nick's smile, his crumpled body. You roll off the bed and pace the room, running through the events of the day in the same way you'd work through a difficult plot. None of this makes sense. Nick was acting weird today, but not like someone gathering their friends for one last goodbye. He never told me why he wanted me to watch his friends. You remember him pulling you aside the moment you arrived at the mansion where no one else could hear. I'd like you to keep an eye on the other guests for me this weekend. Let me know if anyone says or does anything weird. He could have been scared of one of them, maybe for good reason. Plus, a typed note is the oldest murder trick in the book. I even used it in Murder by Motive. You know that denial is the first stage of grief, but the more you turn it over in your head, the more certain you are. Nick wouldn't. He just wouldn't. I just know it in my own gut. And if I'm right, somewhere in this house there will be proof. You glance over to the desk in your room, where you set the still drying note from Nick's pocket. Your first clue. Hopefully not the last. I'm gonna find out what really happened to you, Nick. That's a promise. Sleep comes slowly after your decision. You toss and turn all night as the storm rages outside your window, until finally you wake to a knock at your door. You open it, exhausted, wary, to see Farah. What are you doing up this early? Trying to lift some spirits. Angelina was my first stop, but after that I thought you could use a pick-me-up. She holds out a mug of coffee and a small pastry. I wasn't sure if you were a tea person or a coffee person, but I figured no writer would turn down caffeine. After Nick's death and your uneasy night, there's a moment where your nerves kick into overdrive as you stare at the mug's contents. Thanks. It's nice to see a friendly face. She looks at you for a long moment, her gaze suddenly sharpening. Then she's passing you the mug and the pastry, her hands brushing yours for a moment, and then the look is gone. She smiles softly. Funny. I was just thinking the same thing. I've still got 7 other people to bring breakfast to at this ungodly hour, but good luck with whatever has you up so early. She turns on her heel and vanishes down the hall. You hear her knocking on another door as you try to get your bearings. I need to check Nick's bedroom, where he fell. Maybe there's something that proves he didn't write that note, or signs of a struggle. You head up to a stairway toward the 3rd floor, but halfway there you hear movement up ahead. Why is someone else sneaking around up here? I'll sneak towards the sound. Tiptoeing as quietly as you can, you move towards the sound. You plaster yourself to a wall and peek around the corner to see Dante creeping towards the closed door, furtively looking over his shoulder. Dante, what are you doing? He flinches and spins around when he spots you. Some of the tension goes out of his shoulders. I'm I'm looking for answers. This sudden death, it just doesn't feel like Nick. You take in the dark shadows beneath his eyes, the muskiness of his still stylish hair. Dante clearly didn't sleep much last night either. But if he did jump, the signs, or the thought of missing any sign of this and my friend, it's eating you alive. Yeah. Seems like I'm not the only one alone in that. Let's just say I have a lot of questions. He takes a long, ponderous look at you and then nods to a closed door. I know Nick's bedroom will have answers, but I haven't been able to face it yet. So I was gonna check out his den first. You think it'll have some clue about what happened to him? No way to tell without looking, but this den doesn't belong to Nick Gallion, billionaire hotshot. It belongs to my good buddy, Nick. If you're up for a quick stop, I think you'd recognize a lot more of him in there than in what you've seen of the mansion. It'd be a good place to remember him and to say goodbye. Might make it easier to face the rest. That sounds really nice. I mean, as nice as anything sounds right now. Then come on. You follow Dante into the room and blink in surprise. It feels like you've stepped through a portal into a humble, alternate world. You spin around, recognizing your old friend in the electric lighting, the comfortable couches, the framed movie posters on every wall. Yeah, this is him, alright. Looks like his old apartment, only inside a billionaire's mansion next door to a home cinema complete with antique popcorn stand. Well, that explains all the movie posters. You recognize some of Nick's favorite movies. Classic Hollywood epics, gritty film noirs, but a couple are unfamiliar to you. South City Sinners, The Devil Wears Gucci. I've never heard of those. He gives you a rueful smile. They were my first films. Don't bother looking for me on the posters, though. I barely had 2 lines in either. But Nick still bought the posters to support you? He bought out a theater's worth of tickets to support me. All for opening weekend. Classic Nick. He's always been generous. I mean, he always was generous. Even when we were kids. Talking about him in the past tense already hurts. You aren't sure it's going to get any easier. Really? He always said he had nothing when he was a kid. You don't need money to be generous. If he loved you, then his time, his attention, his whole heart was yours. I was always afraid that all this wealth would change him, but it just gave him more opportunities to show up. Yeah. That sounds like our Nick. You know, Nick bought dozens of copies of all my books on release day. Made a huge difference in those early releases. Those sale numbers convinced some of the big stores to stock them at all. Oh, I know. Check this out. Grinning, he nods to a shelf where a first edition of every single one of your books stands on a proud display. You shake your head in disbelief, touching a fond finger to the spine of your debut novel. Murder by Mayhem. Feels like it wrote you ages ago. Wow. Have you read any? Thanks to Nick, I have a very similar shelf at home. But have you read any? Only one, with the university deans who poisoned all the students. Murder by Major. Ah, that's the one. I like that a lot. But not enough to read any of the others? I read 1 million scripts per year, and only 1 book. You should actually feel very honored. And thank you. You smile and turn away to see Dante on the next poster. He beams out at you with an early whoosh vacuum at his feet. Oh my god, that's you. Yep. That's why you looked kind of familiar yesterday. Not because of your films, but because I was the whoosh guy for a while, yeah. It was actually my first paid acting gig. Is that how you and Nick met? Yeah. Whoosh was still taking off, so Nick wasn't a billionaire superstar yet. Just a cool guy with a good idea and a couple million under his belt. Oh, only a couple mil. So down to earth. Yeah. Hey, I grew up around a lot of rich a-holes, so to me, he did seem that way. Okay, perspective accepted. He and Pete booked me to do a few events, and we got to talking about one of them, and then that was it. We were friends. And he changed my life. My career wouldn't be where it was if he hadn't supported me the way he did. Isn't your dad a superstar? A note of bitterness creeps into his voice. I'm not saying that being the son of Gabe Valdez didn't get me into some important rooms as well, but it's nice to get started in my own way. Dante falls silent, looks away. There's clearly some history there, but before you can form a question, he speaks up. I have to ask, did you ever suspect Nick was struggling? You knew him longer than anyone. Do I tell him what I really think, or would it be kinder not to tell him something I can't prove? I wondered if he was hiding something. You decide not to let too much slip, but it's not really a lie. What kind of something? I don't know. The last few times we talked on the phone, he seemed preoccupied, and he frowns as you remember Nick asking you to keep an eye on his friends. He was definitely hiding something from me, something about one of them. And it made me worry about him. That's all. He sighs. Even when I came to him with the stupidest, smallest problems, Nick always made time for me. It was one of my favorite things about him. I always thought it went both ways, that he knew he could come to me with anything. But maybe he didn't. And that thought's killing me. Dante, I'm sure he knew. He seemed like he trusted you. And up until, well, yesterday, I would have said that Nick wasn't the kind of guy to keep secrets from his friends. I would have too. He finds a drinks cart in the corner and takes a moment to pour you each a drink. Here, I think he'd want us to enjoy these. Sazerac. I don't know what that is. Nick's favorite. Yeah. Last time Nick and I drank together was the only time I can think of that he seemed troubled. By what? He hesitates as if weighing whether it's right to share more, but then he goes on. Angelina, they were having some relationship issues, but he didn't say what, only that he thought he'd messed up. When was this? A couple of weeks ago. But yesterday they seemed so happy. Yeah, I thought so too. I assumed that whatever it was had passed. I'm such an a-hole. I should have asked him about it. You can't blame yourself, Dante. Unless you're hiding something I don't know about. He sighs and sips part of his drink. I'm trying to tell myself that, but I think it's gonna take a lifetime to sink in. He swirls his half-empty glass and glances at you with a complicated look on his expressive face. Thank you for coming in here with me. It helps to talk about Nick with someone who cared about him just as much as I did. You take his hand and give it a comforting squeeze. Likewise, you might be the one silver lining in all of this. His hand tightens around yours, his gaze meeting yours with a quiet gratitude. Don't give me too much credit, but it's nice not to have to face this alone. Then he pulls away, drains his glass, and returning it exactly where he found it, you follow suit. Okay, I think I'm ready to face his bedroom now. You follow him up to the hallway and around a corner. He stops suddenly, his hand brushing your arm as he motions for you to wait. Someone's in there. In Nick's bedroom. He follows an alarmed gaze to a door. It stands ajar. Beyond it, you hear the sounds of movement. You push past Dante, shove the door open. For one beautiful, irrational moment, you let yourself hope that the last night was all a terrible dream. But it's not Nick. It's Jun rifling through Nick's nightstand. Jun, what are you looking for? What the... He pulls a taser from his hip and trains it on you before you can blink. You raise your hands in alarm. Easy, it's just us. He blinks at you in shock and then lowers the taser. I wasn't expecting anyone to come in here this early. We all seem to have had that thought. But why are you up here to begin with? I could ask you the same thing, but I've been with Nick day and night for 2 years. If he was really planning to do it, I should have seen it. Ah, you feel guilty. Join the club. There's no swag and it sucks. You're looking for answers. So are we. Let us help. He studies you a long moment, giving you a considering look. Then to your surprise, he gives a curt nod. 3 heads are better than 1, and I trust the 2 of you more than Nick's other friends, if only a little. Thank you. Not a compliment, but he hesitates, then looks to you. Thanks for what you said to Angelina last night, about this not being my fault. You don't have to thank me. It was true. You turn your attention away from Jun to Nick's enormous bedroom. Dante was right when he said that the den felt more like the old Nick. I guess this was where the new Nick got to shine. This is a big room for 2 people. 1 person. Angelina has her own suite in another wing. Seriously? Is that a recent thing? No, they've always liked their own space, though they don't go back and forth as much as they used to. That tracks with what Dante said about Nick and Angelina having relationship problems. Jun moves to a couch as Dante examines the en-suite bathroom. You turn slowly, searching for anything out of place in the spotless suite. A few things leap out at you. A book, a whiskey bottle on the nightstand, and a record player by the window. I'll check out the book. You pick up a copy of a familiar book, The Murder by Midnight, your latest release. Damn it, Nick. Why couldn't you make this easy and be the kind of guy to keep a journal? You turn the book over in your hands. The spine is cracked, broken, the pages bent from having been dog-eared at some point. Must have been the 4th time he's read that. At least. A lump forms in your throat. You swallow it down and return the book to its place. Clearly an antique, Nick did love his record collection. You take a step closer, instinctively wanting to run a hand over the polished surface, but then you see a window behind it. Memories of Nick's broken body flash across your mind. You wince and step away. You rotate the bottle to look at the label. Top shelf stuff. A single clean glass sits beside it. He was drinking whiskey in his room. Nick liked to drink. Sure, but in his room alone, not exactly a good sign. So, he was going through something, but what? Think, Finn. If I was writing about a murder staged like a tragic ending, what clues would I leave behind for the reader? Was the door open when you came in? No, I had to use my key card. There was no sign of forced entry. By forced entry, do you mean a kicked-in door? That's one end of the spectrum. You can trick a security system like the one Nick installed, but it's difficult. The signs are subtle. Are bodyguards expected to know that sort of thing? No, not as a rule, but I did some security work after I left the Green Berets. You were a Green Beret? So you're a certified badass. I don't see it that way. I'm great at certain skill sets, that's all there is to it. That still seems pretty badass to me. Most of my investigative skills come from asking the internet. For a moment, his lips curve into a slight smile before he seems to tuck it away behind his usual calm facade. I imagine that can backfire. Oh, if you take the first result every time, sure. Speaking of the internet, we do another sweep of the room just to be sure. There are no signs of struggle, nothing that indicates anyone but Nick has been here. Where's Nick's laptop? That note had to have been typed somewhere. It wasn't in his desk in here, or in his nightstand, or under the bed. I'm guessing he wrote the note somewhere else in the house and brought it back here, locked the door behind him. Damn it. Then we need to find the room where the letter was written. His laptop's probably still there. Hold on. Is that Nick's costume? Dante stands in the doorway in Nick's walk-in closet. A deep brown noir-style suit hangs inside. Yeah, he had it made for the party. Liz or one of the other staff must have laid it out for him earlier. The last time we saw Nick, he was heading upstairs to get ready. John, you're sure he had the suit specifically made? He hunted down a Hollywood costume designer to make him an exact replica of Elliot Gould's suit and the big sleep. So, yes, I'm sure. Why? Because it feels like a big point against him jumping. That's a lot of effort to go for a suit he had no intention of wearing. We could take a look around in there. Maybe find something that tells us where his head was at. Investigate Nick's closet to unlock a clue. Collect all the book's clues for added insights and unlock a special scene. More data is always better than less. Let's take a look. John and Dante follow you into his closet. You're immediately taken aback by how much larger it seems on the inside. This is a closet. It feels like a private store. Nick has even more suits than I do. John gives a wry smile at the racks and racks of carefully stored suits. There must be 100 here. He practically had a new suit for every day of the year. That is too many suits. Too many. It's barely enough. You're going to have to explain that one to me. Nick's not your usual 800 hoodie tech billionaire. He wears a suit whenever he goes into the office or does anything affiliated with Whoosh. He gestures to a section of sharp suits in blacks, grays, navy blues, and points to a section of sleek penguin suits. And then you have the suits and tuxes he wears to fundraisers, galas, award shows. You need a different one for every level of formality. My God. And then, of course, there are his premier suits, his event suits, his launch suits. Don't forget his casual suits. Okay, I'd like to amend my earlier statement and go, that is way too many events. Maybe that was the problem. You turn away from Dante and overcome and notice something familiar peeping out at you in place of prominence from Nick's tie rack. No way. He still had that old thing. What do you say? A familiar tie. You tug a weathered gray tie from the rack. You can instantly feel the difference in quality between it and his newer silk ties. Nick's lucky tie. He used to wear it when we were in college. I can't believe he kept it. What makes it so lucky? Nick was wearing it when he pitched the Whoosh to investors. Wow, that tie is a piece of history. He must have wanted to remember where he came from. A $10 tie from a strip mall sitting here next to 100% pure silk. I hope that's not how Nick saw himself. John moves towards Nick's costume for the murder mystery party as you swallow the lump in your throat. The noir-style suit hangs in what must have been a dressing area. Huh. Look at that fedora. He nods towards a fedora sitting on a bench across from the mirror. All by its lonesome. See how his shoes and belt are laid out on the shelves? It should be with Them. But it's on the bench. Nick must have moved it. Meaning at some point last night, before he must have tried it on. Could he have been wearing it and practicing his character in the mirror? Why would he bother doing that? He already did it as part of your acting exercise. That's my point. He wanted us to practice our roles. So, he did plan on playing the game? Then why jump before it could begin? Maybe he didn't. So you're saying, what? That he was murdered? I'm saying I want proof before I jump to any conclusions. Oh, that's a bad choice of words. But yeah, I think we have to leave that on the table. Dante considers this for a long moment, his shoulders slumping. Is it crazy that murder seems less awful to me than the alternative? No. It's scarier in some ways, but easier in others. John nods, his expression grim. We can't afford to rule anything out. You turn your attention to the suit itself. The dark brown suit hangs beside a white, dramatically collared shirt. You run your fingers over it. It's unbuttoned. Would it have been hung up that way? No. If anyone unbuttoned it, Nick did. So he did come up here meaning to change. He even started putting on the costume. And then something happened that stopped him. Maybe he was interrupted. Text or phone call, something that got him out of this room, and not towards the bedroom you all came from, to where he jumped. Or, if you're right, was pushed. It's not the smoking gun you were hoping for, but as you stare at Nick's suit and the fedora on its bench, you feel that same certainty again. A hat isn't exactly evidence of a crime, but it proves that something happened to him. You found a clue in Nick's closet. Okay, it's a fedora, but sure. We have to keep searching. John looks back to the bedroom. There's one last place that might have something to tell us about what happened last night. You're right. No point in putting it off any longer. He leads you back into the bedroom, and you all turn reluctantly to the wide window overlooking the courtyard and the mountains beyond. Next to the record player, the window still hangs open, letting in the smell of fresh air and wet soil. None of you take a step forward. God, that's a long drop. Could I be wrong? Could Nick really have jumped? As you stare at the window, you try to picture the scene in your mind, just like when you're staring at a blank page. Now, playing as Nick Galliant. You, Nick, stand at your bedroom window staring into the night. Lightning crashes, revealing your despairing reflection in the glass. It's all over. There's no point anymore. I'm suffering something Finn could never imagine. She couldn't even use that writer's brain of hers to imagine what I'm going through right now. You step past your antique record player and open the window, letting the cold spray of rain hit your face and hesitate. This isn't what I would do, Finn. You understand that, right? Now, playing as Finn. You're right, Nick. It can't have happened like that. It can't. You examine the windowsill closely, noticing scuff marks along the edges. They could just be wear and tear, but maybe not. I don't see anything out of the ordinary. John reaches out to pull the window closed, but then you see it faint in the grooves of the windowsill. Wait, is that dried blood? He looks closer, scratching a nail at the edge of a small, spattered stain. He gives you a single nod. That has to mean something. Why else would he be bleeding before he fell? One drop of blood is Hardly bleeding, though. And how do we even know it's from last night? How often do Nick's cleaners come through? Normally every day, except today, obviously, since the staff left before the storm and they're thorough. So, wherever it came from, it had to have gotten here yesterday. You stare at the droplet, doubt gnawing at your stomach. There's one thing that might tell you, the one thing you've been dreading the most. I want to see Nick's body. I'll take you to it. Really? Still think the most likely answer is that Nick did it himself, and none of us saw it coming. None of us will ever understand why. But right now, things aren't adding up. The note we found on Nick made it sound like he's called you all here to say goodbye. But the state of his costume suggests that his death was a spontaneous decision. Both of those things can't be true. If this was foul play, the most likely place we'll find any evidence of it is on his body. Trust me, I've researched a lot of murders. If you really think this needs to be done, then I'm with you. It's not gonna be easy to see Nick like that. Not for any of us. You and Dante follow John down to the mansion's large commercial-grade kitchen. Its walk-in freezer. John hesitates at the door. This was the only place cold enough to store him. You should prepare yourselves. You grab a pair of latex gloves from one of the kitchen workstations and follow John and Dante into the freezer. Then stop at the side of Nick, laid out on a makeshift gurney, his skin as white as marble, his lips touched with blue. Oh God. Dante takes a deep breath and turns away for a moment, but John looks levelly at you. You're up. You pull on the latex gloves and lay your hand gently over Nick's. It's ice cold. Sorry, Nick. I hope you understand. You always did love a good mystery. You squeeze his cold, hard hand and then lower yourself to investigate his fingernails. What exactly are you looking for? Anything, skin, blood, even dirt would indicate that something happened to him, but I don't see anything obvious. You move over Nick, gently peeling back his clothes to check for any bruising, strange marks. You find plenty of the former. Bruises aren't surprising for someone who fell 3 stories and landed on cement. Dante turns back to Nick's body, keeping his eyes on you. You see a hint of something shine through his grief. You've impressed him. You really do know your stuff. I try to. Not that I've ever had to use any of it in real life before. I think we've covered most of the body. All that's left is to check the cause of death. John's gaze softens in momentary sympathy. I can help. Nick isn't the first body I've seen. You nod, grateful for his presence at your side as you move to stand by Nick's head. The wound looks worse in the cold light of the freezer. A long fault line runs along the crown of his skull, sending cracks through his hairline. Breathe through the discomfort. Slow, deep breaths, just like your PI takes every time she sets foot in the morgue. You can do this, you have to. You move closer, steeling your heart and stomach against the gore to really look. And then you notice it. Wait, that's not right. The big eggshell-looking fracture is definitely from the fall. But look how deep it goes in this spot on the side. I see it. But that means he got the wound on the top of a serious head injury. One Nick definitely didn't have when we last saw him. Your mental image of Nick's last moment shifts. Instead of his head shattering against the cement, you see a blunt object crashing into a skull, and then a body pushed, falling through the storm to hide the crime. Nick didn't jump from the window. He was murdered by someone in this house, and now we have proof. Without further ado, thank you all for watching. Please remember to like, share, and subscribe. Head down the description. Plenty of things to check out there, ways to support, and whatnot. With that being said, let me know your feedback in the comment section below. What you think has happened, who, what, when, where. We're just getting started. So, thanks again for watching. Catch you all in the next video. Peace out.